Hey everybody, welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast. My name is Josh Veach, and I am one of the directors here at Go Shout Love. We've had a busy month of shouting love for Riker and Sutton from Lincoln, Nebraska, and so there are just a few days left in the month to support these two awesome families. And so if you haven't already, be sure to head over to our website and purchase a t-shirt or hat or any other item. Any of those purchases made in November will support these two families, and so we encourage you to do that. As we prepare to celebrate Thanksgiving this week, I want to take just a minute and share a genuine word of thanks to you and for you, our listeners, and those of you who have made a purchase, and especially those of you who join us in shouting love for families each and every month through our monthly t-shirt subscription. Because of you, not only do these families receive the love that comes with their story being heard and the financial support that they need, but our team feels your support as well. We are incredibly passionate about continuing to build this community, and we're extremely thankful to have you on this journey with us. So on behalf of our entire team, seriously, thank you. We appreciate you. And if this community has been a place of encouragement for you or support, and you enjoy learning and growing from these families, we would love it if you would take just a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, which will help us reach more people. With that, I want to introduce you to one of our team members that you hear from the most, but you don't know it. Paige Muller is our social media coordinator here at Go Shout Love and does a fantastic job of leveraging the power of social media to help people meet and fall in love with these amazing families that we get to shout love for. So here's my chat with Paige. I hope you enjoy it. Paige, welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast.
Thank you.
You are all things social media for Go Shout Love, and you've been doing that for almost a year now, right?
Yep.
And so we'll jump into some of the Go Shout Love side of things, but before we do that, just like with most guests, we want to know Paige the person. So tell us a little bit about Paige and your family.
All right. This is weird because I usually stay behind the scenes, kind of like Seth. But yes, I'm Paige. I got my degree in advertising and public relations. I'm actually from Kalamazoo, Michigan, currently living in Springfield, Missouri. I'm married of 5 years to my husband, Francois. He is French. If it sounds French at all, you're right.
And just for the record, Francois has hands down the coolest of the names in the Go Shout Love family and extended family of team members. There's no question that.
You think so?
Well, you know, names like Josh and Seth and Jessica and Kristen, they don't have the same ring to them as Francois does. So
where's the flavor?
Exactly. He increases our flavor in the names category.
That is so funny.
So 5 years you've been married?
Yep.
And how did you guys meet?
Well, he did a foreign exchange student program through my high school back in Michigan. So we were friends for a couple years. There was an age gap at the time, which I don't know if that's too much information. It was like 3.5 years, nothing crazy.
No,
but, you know, as you get into your 20s, age kind of isn't a factor anymore. So, yeah, we dated for 2.5 years. We were engaged for maybe a year, and then we got married. Bought a really cheap home, decided to flip it. We've been doing that for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a project.
And is it going as planned, or has there been some unexpected challenges in that?
That is a tough question because I think the plan of flipping a house is just being ready for the unexpected, and we have ran into every unexpected situation, from having to redo the flooring, blow in insulation. Yeah, this is not HGTV. Joanna Gaines only gets to do the fun things like pick out the pillows and curtains.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So are you hands-on doing a lot of that stuff?
No, I won't even try to take credit.
No.
He does all the hard labor. And then when it's time to paint and set a vision, then I come in, you know.
Awesome. So Kalamazoo, which is extremely fun to say. Mm-hmm. So you guys are killing it on Francois and Kalamazoo. None of us come close to either of those cool city names either. So what brought you to Springfield, Missouri?
That is a good question. When I was in high school, I decided that I needed to go to a Christian college. So I looked online. I only found one that was Evangel University. So I applied, got in, and I was like, okay, this is my ticket out. This is my next chapter of life.
Yeah.
So I moved 9.5 hours, no friends or family living in the state, just a will to be spontaneous and kind of find my own way away from my hometown and family and stuff. So
was that's a big deal. That's a big move.
Yes.
And like you said, it's kind of like the spontaneous decision, or almost like more of a freedom. I'm just going to make this happen type of decision. Was that consistent with your personality, like all during high school, or was that like the beginning of something new?
Always. My poor mom. When you go through your terrible like preteens and you're like, I'm going to move out. And they're like, okay. Oh, Josh, this is coming, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if it's different for sons.
Yeah.
But
I hope we have at least several years. But.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, I just always wanted to be on my own and move out. And everyone in my family has stayed in the same hometown for 3-4 generations. And I just really didn't want that for my life. I love my hometown. I have a greater appreciation for it.
Right.
Now that I'm gone. But yeah, I just want to see the world.
Yeah.
Even if it's not New York or LA or Chicago, even if it's in the Midwest, there's so much to learn here. And really just on the path of self-discovery.
Yeah.
As cheesy as it sounds.
So that's been, it's almost like a conscious decision to step into places that are unfamiliar, that kind of cause you to be around people that you don't know, and people that are even different than you in a variety of different ways. And even making that choice, I think, opens you up to some vulnerabilities and learning opportunities that you just don't get if you stay in what's familiar. And that's got nothing to do with the size of the town or the type of people. That's just the difference between staying in what you've always known and like choosing to transition into things that are different.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are people who grew up in like major cities who like make a choice to
move to the country,
some time to experience the small town life, and it's a complete shift for them too, just because it's different. But
yeah.
So you've been in Springfield then for how long?
I think we're going on 6.5, 7 years, which is weird. It just goes by so fast. College was a super fun experience. I felt like it was almost like a cookie jar, like, oh, I can take this class and this class and this class. And it came to a point where my advisor was like, Paige, you are literally just like blowing money. She was like, none of these classes like fit into a cohesive degree. Like, get it together. Basically, she told me that. And it was so frustrating because I have so many different interests. There's like the artistic side, and then there's my heart for like humanitarian purposes, and then psychology, just everything. And I could not see how all of my different interests would kind of mesh together into a so-called profession or career path.
Yeah. So how did you land when you went into school? Were you going, like, was the plan advertising, or did that kind of come out of some of those hard conversations of like, you got to pick something?
Yeah, it definitely took some hard conversations. I changed my major 4 times. While in college. I still managed to graduate on time only because I took 3 summer classes. 3 years worth of summer classes. Yeah. There's a big difference between just 3 classes and then 3 consecutive years.
You took very few breaks then.
Yes. Yep. I think it took me having a meltdown in my car with my grandma, and we went back to my house and we printed off all of the possible degrees that Evangel provided. And I just went through, scratched them off. Okay, what job can I get with this? Nope, definitely couldn't do that. Scratch it off. And it was hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard, but it also was such a clarifying moment for me because I realized at the time I was going for psychology, and I love how the mind works and what motivates people and stuff like that. But when it came down to a profession, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I'm way too empathetic. I think it would have eaten away, and I wouldn't have been able to give people wise, like, stable counsel because I would constantly be fluctuating with their emotions.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that you land on advertising because marketing and advertising is very much driven by psychology. It's not just about making things pretty. It's not just about trying to write clever things. It's really trying to understand why people make the decisions that they make, and then from a brand's standpoint, or a business standpoint, or whatever, trying to leverage some of those deeper whys and put things in front of people that are going to help them make certain actions. And that sounds really like dirty, right? It sounds almost manipulative, and in some cases I'm sure it is in different fields. And I mean, you could look at all kinds of historical things when you look at the tobacco industry and how very much it has been negatively used. But there's great positives that come from that too, by helping people make choices based on what actually drives them, instead of just like features of a widget.
That's very true.
So you've been in Springfield, you said 6 to 7 years, and would you say that you're the same Paige that moved to Springfield 6 or 7 years ago? Or if not, what ways would you say that you're different, or you've changed or grown?
Ooh, it's taking a minute to process. I think naturally I'm obviously not the same person, just going through school and then entering marriage at the age of 19, and kind of going through that really uncomfortable, like, I guess I'm an adult phase.
What does that look like?
Yeah. It's so interesting. I've seen a lot of like high spikes in my life where I've been, I'm like really outgoing and really extroverted, and then moments where I'm like really introverted and kind of I just keep to myself. I focus on self-care, trying to figure out who I am. So I think the past 5 years, it's really been finding a balance and just trying to prepare myself for the next season so it doesn't catch me off guard. It's definitely been a process. I'm naturally extroverted, so knowing what's going on inside of me, like how I'm feeling, am I overworked, am I making time for like my spiritual life, mental health, physical health, I don't notice it as quick until it like hits me in the face. And then I just want to do nothing. So yeah, finding a balance has been a process. Also just deciding what I want to do as an adult and going for it. Post-grad was really uncomfortable, Josh, as you know. Josh saved me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, looking for jobs, going through interviewing processes, not something I'm super good at. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be a professional. I might just work in a restaurant my entire life, and that'll be fine. I'm talking to people. I'm, having casual conversation, but stepping into freelance and doing social media management, digital marketing, it's really made me grow in areas that I didn't even know were possible. So like being organized or pre-planning or, writing and all these things I never really considered myself good at or like capable of doing. And now here we are almost like 2 years later, and I'm like, this is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. So for anyone listening, you've been doing Go Shout Love work for about
almost a year
now, and then but for a year prior to that, you've worked alongside of me in Tension Group, my other business, helping other brands with messaging and social media management, and you've been just a huge blessing on both of those fronts. But I think I've probably told you this. If not, I should have. But it was really fun because at the same time that you were kind of looking, we were serving together on a team at church, and I had recognized how well you had taken notes in a meeting. And this was like probably my first interaction with you. I knew you were a photographer. I knew you were creative, but this was like really my first interaction. And you had like written these excellent notes with very clear to-dos and next steps. And I was like, and at that same time, I was kind of like drowning in some of my own work, but like not at the point where I could hire someone full time. And I was like, this Paige is what I've been looking for. And it's been so great to see you excel in on both of those fronts. And all the work that you've done for Go Shout Love has been phenomenal and has freed up some of our other team members to focus on certain things to help us be moving in the right direction of growth. And so it's been just so cool to see you grow in that area. But so specifically, what kind of growth have you seen in the last year? How do you think you're different, or you've grown in the last year?
Specifically, I feel like I have grown in the way of just showing up. I'm the type of person where I don't really know how I feel about things until I'm walking it out. Mm-hmm. So for me to just show up and do this podcast interview or go to a client meeting and pitch ideas, I don't know. And I get so anxious of what if I don't say the right thing? What if I'm not prepared? What if I just forget how to act? Oh my goodness, I could just be like a wild monkey. I don't know. It's like, so much anxiety. Yeah. So just pushing that aside and not being afraid. So just seeing the fear and then choosing to just step forward in it, even if it's present. It's been huge. Speaking in front of people, I don't enjoy doing, but in this season of my life, I'm seeing myself talk in front of people and help lead things for the first time. And my mom always told me, like, Paige, like, be a leader, don't be a follower, because I would always get into like the lesser well-behaved group in school. So it's been nice to just trim the excess of like what isn't necessary in my life and just focus on the good and fertilize that and see the growth and see an uncomfortable season and just still find something worth it out of it.
Yeah, that's really good. There's so much truth in that. The idea of just showing up and pushing through, because anytime we're going into something that's new or unusual, our natural tendency is to go to the worst case scenarios. Mm-hmm. And every time we choose to push through those things, we see that very rarely do the worst case scenarios actually happen. And then you start, like, each time you keep showing up, those fears become, less and less. Yeah. The voice of that fear becomes less and less loud, and you're able to just like succeeding in those areas becomes the routine, or just showing up and doing the task or leading the people or having difficult conversations, that becomes the routine instead of just the uncomfortableness of like, should I even do this?
Or like being worried to just do it perfect.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between doing something well and then striving for perfection all the time. And I can be such a perfectionist in my work, and it just got exhausting. Yeah. And then I was holding all these ideas and projects and aspirations to myself, and they were just like sitting there and taking up space in my life because I wasn't choosing to just like let them go and actually pursue them. Yeah. So just doing it.
And I think especially for people of faith that believe that, that there is a creator and that we're kind of like wired in certain ways. I feel like I've been wrestling with the idea of perfection and even just trying to win the approval of others. Mm-hmm. And as long as that's the goal, you're never going to succeed. Like you will always feel like you're not measuring up, whether you're actually not measuring up to people's expectations or you just feel that way because of the inner voice. You never get there.
It's so true.
But when you recognize that, like, okay, I'm going to do my best to live out whatever I've been given and whatever's put in front of me for an audience of one, instead of like trying to live up to other people's expectations or, meet certain criteria, then it gives you this freedom to like launch this new creative idea or, get out in space and put yourself out there, and not be afraid of what other people think of it. I don't know if we ever get there because I think there's always a little bit of that. Yeah. That's hard, but.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get there, but it's the idea of building up a callus. Yeah. And just be like, okay, it's uncomfortable and it hurts, but you just have to keep going. And I see that in our Go Shout Love families all the time. Yeah. Especially with the parents, like these moms and dads, like they don't see their life as being a caretaker, and then they end up stepping into that role, and it's so encouraging, and it it's just real life. Like you have to step into seasons that you don't feel equipped for, that you don't necessarily want to do, but it just has to be done. And you just have to like suck it up, buttercup, do the work that needs to be done. Right. And then maybe tomorrow will be a little easier. Like maybe the next morning you won't be so tired, or you'll just memorize the measurements for the medicine. Like it just gets a little easier each time. And, you know, in my own life, I don't have something as heavy as having to care for a child. So if other people can do that, I can do something as far as going outside my comfort zone and, you know, pitching to a client or speaking in front of a group of people. Yeah.
Well, and the same holds true for the rhythms and patterns and like habits that you create. Like that becomes who we are. And so those parents that are able just to knock out those measurements, like you said, like memorize all these detailed things, and it's because of the repetition, like you were saying before, the showing up and just doing what's in front of you, and you know, keep moving forward. And that's something we can, I think, definitely learn and grow from. You've been telling these stories of these families for a year now. What have you learned from them in addition to what you just outlined? Are there any other takeaways that you've just kind of, because of what you've seen on display in their lives, that it's kind of helped mold you as a person?
Yeah, I think going back to that idea of being a perfectionist, you know, when you're a child, people ask like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you kind of have this idea for your life and it fits into this nice little box. And no matter where life takes you, I think everyone gets to the point where they're like, oh, like life is not easy. It's not going to turn out the way you want it to. So just having reassurance of that, and then seeing people just continually overcome their situation, and then be so vulnerable about it. I was not always the type of person that would recognize feelings like anger or anxiety or shame, but just having the courage to talk about those things and share the messy side of your life instead of like the positives. I don't know. It's very refreshing. It reminds you that, you know, people are people, and with social media, it's hard to remind yourself that everyone isn't living the perfect life, and that's okay.
Yeah. And even the question that is so commonly asked of kids, I'm assuming it's still the case now, of what do you want to be when you grow up? Even that question, I think, is wrong. It's like, what kind of label do you want, instead of, because the common question, I guess, is what do you want to do, right? Like we think of profession, we think of those sort of things as if that's the identifier, instead of the who do you want to be? Like what are the internal qualities, the things that are actually make you up regardless of what field or work that you do.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, that we've gotten that question all wrong. And it feeds into who we are now as people. Like we want to put labels on, you know, the photographer. You know, well, no, that's a person behind a camera. That's a person doing photography. And we see that in you know, kids that are diagnosed, you know, and especially, you know, you think of autism and the shift in the language of saying a child with autism versus an autistic child. Like it's completely reframing, and it changes how you view the person when you're thinking about them as a person first. And I think that's something these kids have taught me, these stories have taught me, is to really, regardless of a medical condition or whatever, to look at the person and not think of, it's not about what they can or can't do, what they might offer me as a person or in business or whatever. It's who are they as a person? What do they bring to the table because of their just natural personality and their natural gifts, and to really honor that and to embrace that, you know?
That is super cool. I have a fun little story.
Yeah.
So throughout college, I worked at Applebee's. I actually still work there. But I was working one night, and there was a family sitting in a booth, and my manager came up to me, and they're like, hey, I would love for you to meet this family. So the daughter also had SMA, and they had actually been connected with Go Shout Love. And so it was so cool being in a completely different atmosphere. And then you have, the whole Go Shout Love world that for me, it's mostly been online.
Right.
So to be with a family and just see them and talk to them, and they're like, oh, we know Nella. Like, that's how we got involved.
I'm glad you brought this up. I had completely forgotten this story. So the Applebee's that you work at is like right off of a major highway, and they were just passing through, right?
Yes.
Like they don't live here in Springfield.
No, I believe they live outside of Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember their names because they were the sweetest people. But it was such an awesome moment, and it was such a like reaffirming moment, like, okay, this is like where I'm supposed to be right now.
Yeah. How did you make the connection that like the Go Shout Love connection with them?
Well, so I was talking to my manager because I started to cut my hours, and they're like, where are you?
Oh, okay.
Like, you went from working 6 days a week to now 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm working for this awesome company, Go Shout Love. I gave them like the whole rundown. Yeah. And it just happened. It's a small world.
Yeah.
So his
cool.
high school best friend was a family with a daughter who has SMA.
Oh, the manager.
Yes.
So he knew the family that had stopped in there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It was a cool moment.
That is awesome. Yeah, that really is cool. I love those types of stories. It's I'm reminded of the story that came in during, I think it was after the Southern California month, where 2 random strangers were on a beach in Hawaii, and one of them was wearing a Go Shout Love shirt, and the person who saw it said that, hey, the shirt that you're wearing supported my nephew. And it was just like,
oh, that's so cool.
I mean, it's because we're not huge, like we're not a big company, but I don't know, there's just something special about knowing that the work that we're doing is just way bigger than us, and giving people to connect and not only support these families, but hopefully feel like they're part of a community that we're all growing together.
It's kind of like the ladies with the red hats.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a stretch of a comparison.
Yeah, but
if you see that giant red hat, you guys are already homies.
They're in the club. Yeah. We've got a little bit of a ways to go before we're at that level. Yeah. But hopefully. I don't know if we ever get to the point where we have like blue hats or something.
Right.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Well, so with Go Shout Love, what's been the hardest part of telling these stories on social media and navigating the crazy social media landscape?
Ooh, I think the most difficult thing for me is just putting my experiences aside and really diving deep into the family stories, because a lot of what I do is I listen to the audio and I watch the video and I break up all of that stuff into like bite-sized pieces to share with people on a daily basis. Right. And I never want me as a person, Paige, with my experiences to come across in the posts. And I think a lot of times it can be hard when you're telling a story, especially one that is quite different from yours, to just fully immerse yourself into it. So language has been a huge thing, how to phrase things like we talked about earlier. I pull a lot of quotes for a reason, because I want people to know exactly like how the mom is telling the story and how the dad is expressing what it's like to be a father. Because the way people say things, it's so intentional.
Right.
And you can swap the sentence around, but I think it's beautiful the way people choose to be vulnerable.
Right.
And I like to quote that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just imposter syndrome's huge. I mean, yes, I'm married, but I'm not a mom. I don't have kids. I do have a 13-year-old brother, so I try to like tap into that a little bit to help just relate to people.
Yeah.
But I know we've had this conversation. I'm like, Josh, I don't know how to tell this story well, or I get so scared of like misrepresenting the family and the child and stuff like that. I just never want to offend anybody out of like ignorance or just not knowing.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a hard space to be in sometimes. And we as a brand we're intentionally cautious.
Yeah.
Even, we've had times where, we'll have a question about, something that's said in a podcast. Do we leave that in? Do we leave, because a certain mom may have a certain take on a certain type of medication, and the next month that family may be choosing to have their child on that medication. And so we're trying to constantly be careful about putting their story out there and helping it, and like you said, keeping it in their words, while also not accidentally having our platform bring any sort of negativity to some, or bring any sort of shame or guilt to someone else, because that's not what we're about. Like we're strictly about a place of positivity, of telling these families stories and leveraging the social media platforms for good, and that is a tricky thing. But you do a phenomenal job of letting the voice of the families come through, and I'm so appreciative of that. It's so great to see our families be able to be in the spotlight, but that's not a great way of putting it. I mean, literally their stories are being told, and what we hear from these families month after month, we'll have some months where we have a lot of sales and what we're able to donate is a pretty good chunk. And then we have other months that, sales just don't go as well for, a variety of different reasons. But regardless, we always hear from these families that going through the process of being featured during the month and being able to tell their stories, like even that is a gift. Giving them the opportunity to talk about their lives and share about their lives and connect with people that want to learn about them, want to grow, want to grow in their empathy and learn how they can help other people on journeys that are similar to theirs. Even that is like a therapeutic process for these families. And that's something that I think when we relaunched, I don't know that I really fully understood that side of it. I've come to realize the importance of that more now. And that's why I love our podcast so much. I hope we continue to grow that, and we get more people connected that way. But because it really does, like you were talking about the voice and the tone and the personalities of these parents, it's a real natural reflection of the journey that they're on, and it's something that we can all learn and grow from. And okay, so we're going to shift into some random topics. Okay. So if you could sit down and have a meal with one person, who would that be? And that person can be, in fact, you can answer two if you want. Let's do one that's personal, and then maybe one that's not. So maybe, if it's a celebrity, alive or dead or whatever, you can do that. Okay.
If I could sit down and have a meal with anybody, I would probably choose my grandpa. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was like the kindest person ever. He was a very simple man, but he would always be the first person to fix somebody's car or, give someone money at the gas station, drive like 20 plus hours from Florida to Springfield to help, my husband and I flip our house. He just was the real deal. And I think he really showed me like what it means to care about people, no matter like outward appearance or situation, just like not holding that against them. Like, yeah. Cool. He was a good person.
Okay. Awesome. Any, do you have like another one that's a celebrity or famous or?
So it would probably be like more of like a lighter emotion meal, a little bit more upbeat. Yeah. This would be a more upbeat meal. But if I could have dinner with Michael Scott from The Office.
Oh gosh. So the character. Not actually the actor.
No, what is his name?
Steve Carell.
Yes. I actually heard he's kind of a dragon person.
Really?
He's a little bit more serious, which is awesome. But if I could sit across from Michael Scott and just, throw some one-liners out.
Yeah. Is The Office one of your favorite shows?
It is.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody else about they're huge Office fans but had not watched Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
With Amy Poehler. Mm-hmm. And Rochelle and I we've watched both of those shows all the way through several times. Like, not intently, but like, you're working on stuff, you just put it on.
I think I've seen The Office like 4 times through.
But I think I've actually come to love Parks and Rec even more than The Office.
Really?
I think there are some characters on there for sure, like Jean-Ralphio and a couple others that could like easily spin off into their own show because they are just so unique and complex and ridiculous.
Jean-Ralphio and Mona Lisa are hilarious.
Yes. Yes, they should have their own show.
She's like, money, please.
Yes. Incredible. Yeah. Before we wrap up, 2 more questions.
Okay.
One, do you have a favorite T-shirt design so far? I've been asking our team that.
Ooh. Okay, I'm like mentally reflecting on all the different T-shirts. There's so many. I think from a message standpoint, I really loved the Love Beyond Labels shirt. It's just so good, and it's so necessary in this day and age. I'm not going to go on like a rant, but we all have labels on our life, and it's so important that we just look at others and just try to put it aside, because labels exist so that we automatically put someone into a category. Like, okay, I will get along with this person, or we do have something in common, or they are trustworthy, all these things. So just to meet people with an open mind, I think is something we all need to practice, me including myself. From a design standpoint, I really loved the Pittsburgh Kindness is a Bridge.
Yeah.
What is it?
Kindness Connects Us All.
Yes,
yeah, it has the
yes.
bridge on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, the Love Beyond Labels, it's one that the messaging really applies to. I mean, it's just like so broad. It really applies to everything and everybody. So, yeah, awesome. Okay, and then last question. If you were going to say something, you've opened up and shared kind of the journey of self-discovery and going through the college years and trying to figure all that out, and I mean, we're all still trying to figure it all out, but you've talked about some of the growth that's happened since, you kind of made that decision to leave what was familiar and kind of go down a certain path. What would you say to someone that's 17, 18 and is wrestling with some of those, do I follow? Do I kind of fall in and do the things or be the person that everyone else expects me to be, or do I kind of step out in courage and make my own way forward? What kind of advice or what would you say to somebody in that stage?
Yeah, so I think for me, I've seen 2 steps be like the most beneficial, and they seem almost contradicting, but they aren't, I promise. Hopefully I can explain it. So the first one would be, you have to look inside. You have to know yourself. You have to know how you feel about things, and it's a process. I know like self-care kind of has this like trendy, like, ooh,
yeah.
like,
what does that mean?
Yeah, like, what does that mean? But like, whatever that means for you, just like take the time out of your day to just remove the noise, remove all the opinions, get off social media, quit doing what your mom wants you to do, or like what your community wants you to do as far as like labels, and just reflect. Where do you need growth? Like, what are your strengths? How can you sharpen them? Is there trauma that you need to work past? Are there people you need to forgive? Just, it feels like you're just sitting in a place and you're sinking, but I promise you're not sinking. It's like that flight or fight mode. Like, with today's age, we're so fast paced that to just sit down and reflect is not something that is easy to do. So that would be my first step. And then the second one would be, then you just got to do it. Like, once you have those answers that are specific to you, step out, feel the fear, and do it anyways. There's no other way you're going to learn. I mean, you can be equipped, you can be trained, you can be well-read, but until you actually walk it out, you are not going to find a way to be efficient in whatever you're doing. And I know this is super vague, but I think it's like a 2-step process, like, that can apply no matter like where you are in life or like where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
It's okay if you mess up, if you make a fool of yourself, if you don't know what you're doing. Like, it's okay. And I have to tell myself that like every day. I'm like, okay, you feel very unqualified, and like your imposter syndrome is like, you basically reek of it, but you just have to do it anyways. And like once you like trust yourself and you take that step, like in the church we say you have to take that step of faith, then the next step will be more clear, and you'll just know. It's not knowing what direction to go. It's just like taking the step. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, I was kind of going right all along.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know like, oh, I need to go right. But it's like your footsteps just naturally took you there.
Right.
So
it's like you can look back and see, oh yeah, all these things added up. They didn't make sense in the season or at the time, but looking back, it's like, oh, I was able to take that next step because of what I learned through that hard process right before that.
Like, oh, I'm not crazy. I didn't just go out on a limb and move like 9.5 hours to a different state when I didn't know anyone. Like there was a purpose there, and I'm seeing that, and I'm like, I'm living it out. And if you would have talked to me like 7 years ago, all I would have said was, I don't know, I just want to get out of my hometown.
Yeah.
And that was the step I needed to take.
Right.
And then it was deciding my major, and then it was volunteering in church, even though I really wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then it was just showing up for work and putting myself out there and taking my weaknesses and forcing myself to make them just like comfort traits, not necessarily strengths, just like, okay, like basic level, we can do this.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Paige, thanks so much for your time. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
And our Go Shout Love team is better, for sure, because you are on it, and we're incredibly grateful for you. So thanks.
I love you guys.
Thanks for all you do. I hope you enjoyed getting to meet Paige. I really can't say enough about how awesome it is to have her on our team and how much her work helps move our mission forward. So Paige, thank you. We love and appreciate you, and we're so thankful for you. As we enter into the craziness of the holiday season, we will not be featuring a family in December, but we will have new products as well as some previous designs available in the shop starting December 1st. And in addition to giving our team a bit of a break, this month also serves as a way to sort of help us make up some of the cost that it takes to keep Go Shout Love running. So purchases made during the month will support the work that we're doing. So keep an eye out for a new design launching December 1st, as well as some of the previous designs we'll be bringing back. And again, thank you for listening and joining us in this journey of shouting love. We truly are thankful for you and wish you and your family the happiest Thanksgiving.